It's kind of funny that we're getting a sequel to this movie, especially on the eve of next year, with the first film being 10 years old. So, what took you guys so long? Seriously, what took you so long?
Boy, are we so lucky we ran into you guys.
Wow, those guys are jerks.
Wow, those guys are jerks.
Inside Out 2 is directed by Kelsey Mann with a screenplay by LeFauve and David Holstein and a story by Kelsey Mann and LeFauve. Film stars an all-star cast including Amy Poehler, Maya Hawke, Kingston Tallman, Liza Lapira, Tony Hale, Lewis Black, Phyllis Smith, Edebiri, Lilimar, Grace Liu, Nuriddin-Green, Adèle Exarchopoulos, Diane Lane, Kyle MacLachlan, and Paul Walter Hauser. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, as Riley tries to adapt to her teenage years, her old emotions try to adapt to the possibility of being replaced. It took Pixar 10 years to create a sequel to this movie. It's kind of funny. I'm sure probably it took a long process with the first film because this one has to deal with emotion, so maybe that's the length of the process. But still, it baffles me that it took them this long and possibly just a couple of flops, because as of recently, Pixar has been kind of going through a lot of slumps with regards to their movies for this to even come out. But I do think, however, people were skeptical on how this sequel would live up to the first. I mean, usually sequels never do, and it's a sequel to a beloved Pixar film itself, and usually sequels to Pixar movies are never usually good or just Disney movies. So in the end, it won't beat the first film, but I had such a great time with this movie. I was surprised it was as good of a sequel as it could have been, and I'm just happy that it at the very least delivered on such a great follow-up. So here are now my positives with this movie. The voice acting is terrific. Once again, Amy Poehler is stellar as Joy. Poehler keeps the same optimism and confidence that she brought to the role in the first movie, and she still continues it onward with this. Just like I said in that first reveal, she brings the warmth and kindness as a character that is supposed to be happy, and Poehler just continues to bring that along. Maya Hawke is sporadic and all over as anxiety, one of Riley's new emotions to the movie. Hawke brings the affliction and feelings that would come with being anxious in this movie as somebody who deals with anxiety and depression, but really anxiety itself. Yeah, this movie really depicts it so well on how anxiety can feel on not just teenagers, just to anybody. You know, I was like that when I was a teenager, having to deal with it, and I'm now in my 20s, and I'm still having to deal with the damn thing. Both Poehler and Hawke work well in the scenes that they're in. I understand that they're not in it together throughout the rest of the movie, but the scenes that they are in, really amazing stuff. As far as the rest of the cast, Liz Lapira and Tony Hale are good fill-ins for both Disgust and Fear, who are replacing both Hale and Hale. There was a pay dispute between Pixar and them, and so it led to them being replaced. But they're still good enough to keep the same aspects of what these characters are supposed to be, but they still manage to make the roles that they're playing their own. It doesn't feel like Tony Hale's trying to be a Bill Hader replacement in so many ways. He is just being Fear, as the character should be, and I'm kind of glad that at the very least they aren't trying to capture the afflictions of the actors that originally played them. And Lapar does the same thing with regards to Disgust. She doesn't capture the same things that Kaylin brought. She brought her own and still kept, though, the same aspects of what the character is supposed to be. Both Black and Smith are still solid as both anger and sadness. They managed to keep these characters enduring and funny all throughout this movie, and still making us feel the laughters that they brought in the first film. And for that, I'm kind of glad that they still stuck around. Edebiri is curious and impressionable as Envy, another one of Riley's new emotions in the film. Bari brings wonder and mischievousness to how the emotion of envy should be. Somebody who is trying to impress people or is so in awe of people that she's just trying to almost be one of in this movie, like the girls that Riley wants to be friends with. And I think she does that very well in the movie. Both Hawke and Edebiri are in sync with one another and are enjoyable together in the scenes that they are in, and they do a great job of having a sort of leader and sidekick dynamic in the movie. Direction is solid. Director Kelsey Mann keeps the same momentum that Peter Docter brought with the first film. Mann manages to keep the film on the emotions while also focusing on how Riley struggles with becoming a teenager and also making friends. If there's one thing I am at least happy with, it is that. It's the fact that Kelsey Mann manages to keep the same aspects that Peter Docter brought and still continue that thread, but not in a way that feels like it's just treading the same old, like verbatim, but in a way just showing a new aspect in Riley's life. You know, like they're not moving to a new city. It's just the whole point with Riley is she's just trying to join a new hockey team. And being a teenager comes different emotion. And I think Kelsey Mann does a great job of balancing both of those out very well. The animation is incredible. Every frame and movement of this film is just downright gorgeous. It still shows Pixar's efforts in animation is always amazing. They always are pushing boundaries with regards to how animation can feel as realistic and as stylistic as it can be. And this movie still retains what the first film was, but expands upon it with the different textures and stylings of each of the characters and the different detailing on them. And it's just all amazing for that. And that's always the best thing that you will, I think a lot of people can, at the very least, even with their lower movies, you can never deny Pixar can do animation amazingly. The writing is stellar. Screenwriters Meg LeFauve and Dave Holstein crafts a script that feels natural and relatable for everyone to be investing, truly bringing the humor and heart of it all. I think we've all experienced what it's like to be 13, being a teenager finally, and having those emotions be shifted in or bringing in new emotions to what a teenager is. And the writing here is just done spectacularly. I'm just happy that they were able to keep the same momentum as the first film was with regards to how characters interact with one another and how the conversations flow and how they interact with other people. It's all done with so much care and love. Speaking of which, the story is excellent. Having the film introduce new emotions to add as Riley becomes a teenager and trying to fit in, I think that was a really smart thing to do, because with becoming a teenager, it means new emotions. It means new things that are always added to the human mind. Also, the film does a great job at depicting anxiety so well that it got me. There's a sequence in this movie that involves Riley having a panic attack. And even though I've never had a panic attack, I can tell you, though, how anxiety feels. That is how anxiety truly does get people in so many ways. If you've never dealt with anxiety, this movie shows you firsthand what it's truly kind of like in a more animated film way, but in a way that is like you can understand what it's like for anxiety to take hold of you and to control you so much that it really affects your life. It affects the people around you so much. And for that, if there's nothing else, I praise this movie so much on how they handle anxiety. Truly amazing on how they accomplish that. Pacing and runtime is crazy. Just like the first film, the pacing continues to be consistent. With a runtime of 1 hour and 36 minutes, it's amazing how they managed to fit the entire movie with this runtime just like the first. It still surprises me that it's only like an hour and a half. It's crazy. How did you manage to condense these stories and make it that length? It's just incredible to me. It's a feat of storytelling and a feat in how well they timed this out, and I am ever so baffled on how they managed to do that. The music is fantastic. Composer Adria Datsman makes a score that's on par with what Michael Giacchino brought to the first film score, and it keeps on expanding the music all throughout. Still some of the best score in Pixar's library. If for nothing else, the Inside Out movies are amazing with regards to its music, and it really gets you when the emotion hits. It was really beautiful, man. It really beautiful music. Cinematography is beautiful. Cinematographers Adam Habid and Jonathan Pryko captures the look and feel of the first film and showing new areas of Riley's mind. They make sure to keep the films focused on both the emotion story and Riley's story too. And I'm glad at the very least they still continue that. Again, I know this sounds like I'm repeating you guys, but I'm being serious. I'm glad that everything just feels like it's still expanding. It feels like it's like world building in a way, but in the sense of they still retain the focus of what the story is, but capturing it all is something completely. Like, you're just kind of questioning how they are able to keep the focus on it and capture it all, and it's done so beautifully. It's a great sequel, but I do have some minor issues with this film, so now here are some of my negatives. The involvement of some of the emotions is noticeable. The involvement of sadness in war, who is one of the other new emotions, who represents boredom, feels lacking in screen time and input into the story, if you ask me. I wish they could have been in the film more than they were, especially sadness. I'm surprised they kind of reduced sadness's role in this movie so much so that it kind of left me kind of feeling bad, knowing that she just didn't contribute much. And Wu, I mean, it's cool to see a new emotion, but like, I feel like all that character did was just kind of sit on a couch, and yeah, they're bored, but I mean, you could have done more. The film can also sometimes retread moments from the first film. Moments like joy and the other emotions away from central control, just like how the first movie was. Exploring Riley's mind, it can kind of feel like that sometimes. I'm not saying like is like verbatim, but you can kind of notice it. Chaos ensues at the central control with anxiety and the new groups of emotions and them trying to figure out how this all works, and joy having to work with the other emotions, just like how she had to work with sadness in the first film. You can start to kind of feel those moments when they happen. I'm not saying it is like a verbatim repeat. It's just you can kind of see the familiarity of those moments happen. They can be very noticeable. It's not terrible, but I'm just saying you still kind of feel it, and you kind of wish like, I wish I didn't have to feel like what the first movie did in certain moments of retreading. But I mean, it happens. It's a sequel. That's usually always the case. I still had a lot of fun watching this film, and it made me tear up in the end. Something that I think Pixar always knows how to do. It may not be better than the first, but it's a good follow-up overall. I'm very pleased with this movie. I was very surprised that this movie was able to, at the very least, entertain me and my cousin when I went to see this with him. And yeah, I was happy all around. So I'm gonna give Inside Out 2 an 8 out of 10. Great sequel. I'm surprised this movie crushed the box office, becoming like the highest grossing movie of this year and one of the highest grossing movies of all time and the highest grossing animated feature ever. It's baffling to me that it took this sequel kind of bring Pixar back from some of their flops in a way. For myself, though, I'm very happy with it. Now I will be soon giving my reviews for both The Bike Riders and Horizon American Saga Chapter 1, closing out the June films. So yes, look forward to those reviews and other movie, TV show reviews coming soon.